Come on. There we go. Hello to all you patriots out there in podcast land, and welcome to episode 437 of Canadian Patriot Podcast, the number one live podcast in Canada, recorded December 9th, 2024.
We need your help. To support the Canadian Patriot Podcast, visit patreon.com/CPP and become a Patreon. You can get a better quality version of the show for just $1 per episode. Show you're not a communist. Buy a CPP t-shirt for just $24.99 plus shipping and theft. Visit CanadianPatriotPodcast.com homepage and follow the link on the right.
Excellent. And now our favorite segment of the show, which feels like this week is much needed. What are we drinking? And as is tradition, and because she's the only other person here on the panel with me at the moment, Liz, what are you drinking and something off of the Patriot Challenge?
Did you hear that?
I did.
I'm drinking some good old-fashioned PBR.
Nice, a classic. I had a few of those last week, actually.
It's been a minute and it tastes as disgusting as it always has, but I kind of like it.
Well, I mean,
It's great.
yeah,
It's whatever.
yeah.
I haven't done a lot, I think. I mean, maybe I have done things on the Patriot Challenge, but I haven't paid attention. So
Do you need a refresher on what they are?
please tell me, Gavin.
Have you read like 15 minutes of a book of some kind recently?
Yes.
Anything worth mentioning, or it was like smutty romance novels or something?
Oh my gosh, how did you know? No, actually it was does like labor law count?
I mean, yeah,
It's a book I'd like to burn, but
well, yeah. No, that
there you
counts. I mean, that could also fall under the practicing a skill,
Yep.
right? Like if you were learning about labor law and how to practice that in your position at work.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
Okay, next. What's next on
Um,
the list?
did you improve your fighting position?
Literally,
Okay.
I have been doing some
That one
training,
could.
so
Oh, well, yeah, no. Yeah, that definitely counts. That
yeah,
could also go under the exercise for 45 minutes.
yep,
Yeah,
yep.
no, I think you. Yeah,
Thing.
there you go. Drinking your water.
No,
Yeah, that's okay. PBR is close enough.
I was gonna
It's like
say
it's
this
like
is pretty close.
95%
I
water.
was gonna say, and the rest is just
Yeah,
flavoring. I don't know.
I know that works. Well, there you go. That works. Yeah.
I like it. There you go. See, I told you, I'm pretty sure I'm doing stuff, but I am
Yeah,
negligent in my tracking of this stuff.
that's okay. That's okay.
So
What's important is that you do the things.
yeah, yeah, I'm working on it. I'm working on
Nice.
it. What about you, Gavin?
I am drinking some Jack Daniels and Dr. Pepper Zero this evening just to switch things up. It's quite tasty in a very ghetto way, but that's okay. Much like the PBR, so I think we're on that same but different.
Same but different. Yep.
Yeah.
I Yours might be better.
I mean, I find it delicious, but I don't know. I like both of those things, and mixing them together just makes it even better. Patriot
Good.
Challenge. Been I slacked a little on my water for the last little while. I got to get back into it, but um, finished my book that I was reading last, Seven Troop. So started another one today. So I need to finish that and two more to meet my reading goal of 24 books for the year. So
Okay.
I know I can finish this one before the end of the year. Two more is going to probably be pushing it. One more for sure I can probably do, but we'll see. I'm going for it.
That's a
If I
good
don't make
that's
it, then well, all right. It's still
yeah.
not The one year I did 4 books a month, but that was when we were doing like book club and stuff like that. So like
Yeah. You
I
have to
was
be kind of up
yeah,
on it. You know
really
what?
pushing
You
hard,
should
but
finish it up with like an Archie comic or like
yeah,
one of those little romance novelettes you can get at the grocery
yeah.
store.
No, I mean there's
Reread.
some popular ones right now I hear.
Yeah, just watch the social media and people
Yeah,
are saying,
I try to stay off of that. But here I am saying that as I am literally broadcasting on YouTube, which is social media. But
yes.
that's all right. But yes, you can grab the Patriot Challenge template from our website and post it on the social media, which may or may not be appropriate given recent announcements that we'll get into later. But we'd love to hear your feedback about the show. So please visit CanadianPatriotPodcast.com/feedback or email us at feedback@CanadianPatriotPodcast.com. Version of the show is available on iTunes or here. Um, Upcoming events. Christmas for the Christians in the audience,
Yeah,
or
but
Yule or Hanukkah or
I
those.
was gonna
Otherwise,
say,
yeah,
is Yule your thing?
I celebrate all of the things that end up with me getting stuff for free.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's the beauty of being polytheistic like that. Like I can celebrate all of the things and get all of the stuff. And then just ignore whatever I feel like, which I think is kind of like every religion out there. Like, yeah, we're just gonna forget that part of it. Like I know it tells me that I have to stone adulterers and all that, but that's so much work.
Listen, man, we could really get into it if you want to talk about that specifically.
As
But
we
I feel
get
like
closer to
that's
the
a whole
holidays, maybe
other,
that's
I was
yeah.
gonna say, I feel like that's a whole other podcast.
No, no, no. I think we've kind of threatened to do that. I mean, especially like if we get Darren on the show and all that, just to like have a full on theological.
Theological, like
Yeah, I think
debate.
it'd be fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we'll do that late, maybe as all of the holidays converge. Maybe that's where we'll all duke it out to say
I
whose was
might
the one that
recruit some,
started that particular thing.
oh gosh, I might recruit some people.
That's fine. People are always welcome on here.
Yeah.
They might get made fun of. That's fine. They might make fun of us. That's also fine. But yeah, people are always welcome. Chris is, or sorry, the problem is telling me that I need to sandbag it, much like Pierre said, and pick short books. And suggesting ones made of plastic so that they float. I do audiobooks, so they don't need to float. I can listen to them in the bathtub. That's when I get most of my reading in, is when I drive to and from work, which lets me get in, about an hour a day of reading. So
So when you say reading, you mean audiobooks though?
yeah, but like it's a book. I
Yeah.
I am yeah,
Okay.
I'm
Well, I
multitasking by
mean,
driving.
yeah, because I like I'm a little conflicted most of the time when people are like, "Oh, did you read a book?" It's like, not really.
I mean, in the 75 hard sense of it, they don't allow for an audiobook. It needs to, you have to physically read something. But yeah, for the Patriot thing, is as long as you have taken 15 minutes of your time to absorb content from a book, I would say that counts.
Okay, I like that. I
Like,
like.
we don't want to get too tied up in the semantics of it, right? It's the,
Okay,
are you like,
it's the practice of enriching your brain.
yeah, through either like an educational thing or an entertaining thing, or sometimes both. But yeah, you should read something, whatever it is.
Okay, I'm here for that. I'm
Yeah.
I'm decent at that.
Yeah.
It's good.
And I also enjoy reading things with lots of pictures too, as the problem is suggesting. Not porno magazines,
I was gonna say,
manuals on how to disassemble firearms and clean them and things like that have lots of pictures. But let's get into the news. Um, so Canada Post still on
yep,
strike. Some
a shit move.
yeah, some conflicting things here. So apparently the union has dropped the wage demand to 19% over 4 years. Um, That's
Wow. That's still aggressive. I haven't paid too much attention to it because honestly, I think that like anybody that works for the government already makes a very progressive wage. So
yeah,
I've just kind of like walked away from trying to understand it and pay attention to the specs on it.
yeah.
What
I've
was
been
the
kind
what
of
was the original one?
yeah. I mean, I'll be honest. I've been kind of not paying the most attention to this as well, and I have friends that are postal people, and like
Yeah.
I've been yeah. But yes, looking at this, so another thing that they've also done was they've dropped the demand to merge the urban and rural bargaining units. So I guess they have two bargaining units. Um, so I guess the people
What do
in
you think
the
would be worse? Rural, for sure.
yeah,
They got to deal with like the bad
I don't
roads.
know. I think it's
But I guess
I mean I get
I
it.
guess
So
urban, they probably walk or drive those little carts
yeah,
of
so
carts.
the person that I know, they for the most part just walk their route or the bulk of their route because it's like we'll park at the one area, but like going
Mhm.
door to door to door to door in the truck is kind of stupid,
Yeah.
right? And like I get it. It can be difficult. Like there's, a lot of mail at times and things like that. Things could be heavy, and especially at this time of year and other sort of key parts where there's a lot of like parcel stuff because people are sending gifts and all of that. Like it can be a fairly physically demanding job, and you're outside in the elements when it's stupid hot out or when it's stupid cold out.
Yeah.
So people certainly deserve a fair wage.
Yeah.
Not saying they don't deserve a fair wage. Um, but I guess that's what they're trying to determine what is and isn't fair. And to me, I mean, I would have to see what they're being paid right now, but a 19% increase over 4 years sounds like it is outpacing inflation.
Ye- Oh, for sure. For sure. And even
Unless
in
unless they haven't received a wage increase in, many, 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 many years.
um
But
a postal clerk, I guess,
yeah,
right? Um, they're making, let me do some quick math here with my trusty calculator.
yes. While you intern, I'll keep going. But Canada Post here, it says that, the union did this and dropped this and that and everything else. But then we're also having sort of like a conflicting thing here where Canada Post says the latest union proposals have widened the gap in contract dispute.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So who knows what's going
So
on here?
the
Um,
I think the postal clerks are making like probably close to 27 bucks an hour.
yeah,
Well, it says a post office clerk is like 20 bucks an hour on average. Letter carrier,
yeah,
50,000 a year. So, I mean, I would say it's in
yeah.
line with the median wage of
Yeah,
Canadian.
plus I imagine they get some benefits and things like that as well because it's a government job.
It's
But
saying something like additional 2,000 per year in cash bonuses, stock, commission, profit sharing, or tips.
yeah,
Mail carrier is like 24 bucks an hour, which is 7% above the national average.
yeah. Well, I mean, they've been on strike now for 2 weeks or so. But the problem with this is, I mean, some of us won't feel it at all. Like if you don't get things delivered by Canada Post, then
Yeah.
you'll never notice. I'm certainly seeing a little bit at work where people are giving the old the checks in the mail excuse, despite the
Mm,
fact that there are multiple other ways of which you are able to send money to my company, and we will
so,
gladly accept it in any way that you can send it.
so, it's funny that you say that because at work, I've had a couple of people that I'm dealing with that they've actually reached out to me and they're like, "Hey, since the postage strike, like, what's your plan to send this
Yeah.
money? Like, we've got some contractors working, and we've kind of been all over it. And we even said the same thing to our customers, we send out statements every month. And we have an
Yeah.
admin assistant that she's been calling everybody to get their emails, and we have our staff like hand delivering stuff. You
Yeah.
notice it, but at the same time,
Yeah,
like,
I mean, we like our good customers are the ones that we don't have these problems with because
yeah,
they anticipate things like this and start sending the money either like in advance,
yeah,
where it doesn't matter if it takes a little bit longer, or they start calling and paying by credit card or sending by courier or whatever they need to do in order to pay the bill. It just seems to be that's the problem accounts that are using this, as an excuse. But
course, of course. But this is something that
yeah,
I find interesting is that even though, like, okay, they've reduced it 19%. Okay.
yeah,
Um, I guess, if I look at this, that's gonna pop up somebody's wage by almost like $5 an hour.
yeah,
That's that's substantial.
yeah,
Like when I say that, I'm going based on what like the average postal worker postman makes, like around $24,
yeah. It
25 bucks.
would be noticeable, that's for sure. But yeah, here, so they're saying they've handled 296 million parcels over the course of 2023, or nearly 811,000 per day, and they make up 29% of the parcel market. And they're trying to say that this is a big hole for private operations to plug. But I'm reading this as that private corporations handle 70% of the market, and Canada Post, which like 30%, like is, a fair amount of that for one thing to do. But, how many other carriers are out there? So I
Well,
think
so
that they
this
could
is
plug that 30% fairly easily when you split, 5% here, 5% here, 5% here.
well, yeah. There's I don't
Yeah.
know. I have some like I just don't know if striking, first of all, I think that striking over Christmas, yes, it sends a good message, but it's a dick
Yeah.
move.
Yeah.
Um, but the other side of it too is that I think what people forget is that because it's a bit of a dick move, I think people are going to start utilizing other methods,
Well, and that
and it's kind of creates like a weird obsolete
kind of
or
like when the
reduction.
liquor store went on strike and we're
Yeah.
like, we're going to be on strike because we're pissed off that you're going to start selling alcohol in other places,
Yeah. It's like, okay.
justifying the ability to do so. And this is the same. So like, Pure Later, UPS, et cetera, have done this. And now
Yeah.
some of them have had to sort of tell some like third party places that collect packages and drop them off to like hold off
Mm,
so that they can get the individual things going. But like, that's because this kind of came out of nowhere. I imagine if you give them a short amount of time, they will ramp up their ability to deal with all of this
yeah, for
and it
sure.
will become a non-issue again. But
Yeah.
yeah, I just
It doesn't really make sense.
yeah,
Cool. But here's what's interesting. So I don't know if you say Cup W or whatever, the union,
yeah.
COPW union, they're making like 34 to 36 bucks an hour.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I, I I haven't followed it too closely, but yeah, I would tend to agree that like it seems that they get paid reasonably fair. It is kind of a shitty job at times, but also I think that they kind of knew that going in.
I would think so, because there's like a lot of job security when you go into jobs like that, right? And I think that it's fair to say that most people stay
Yeah.
working in positions like, maybe I'm totally off base here, but I
Yeah.
think a lot of people stay in positions like that because job security, pension,
Yeah,
like,
you have to look at the whole package, right? Not
absolutely.
just
Because when you look at hourly wage, you could probably compare that to most other jobs and say, oh, I'm
Yeah.
getting paid less per hour. But the
Yeah.
compensation package is probably more aggressive than most workplaces.
Yeah, and anyone works for them, and I'm wrong, please correct me so that I have a better understanding of what's going on. But also, I kind of think that they kind of take a look at their roots and kind of ballpark what it should take to deliver it, and that's how they base their wages on it. And so, if you happen to have a day where there's nothing, you may be like, ahead of the game because you've now done, you know, lesser amounts of work, but you're still getting the paid. Now you're going to have the other days where like it's Christmas and we have all of these parcels and it's going to take us twice as long to do our route.
Yeah.
So there's some ups and downs and all of that kind of need to get smoothed out. But yeah,
Yeah, it's a little.
I don't know. It is a bit of a dick move doing it at Christmas though, and like continuing to do it into the season when, it's a people are relying on the post office.
Well, it's interesting. I got some things shipped in from the States, and they're like, "Oh, hey, you're not going to get this until after Christmas because of the postal strike." So my response was like, "I get that you think that that's the only mode of transportation in Canada, but like,
Yeah, there are
use
so many other couriers.
use FedEx, use like whatever, use a courier. It does not
Yeah,
matter. It
yeah.
does not matter."
All right, well, on to something else. Intimidation now commonplace in Nova Scotia lobster industry, says buyer whose home was shot at. So the RCMP have laid 51 charges against a criminal organization related to illegal fisheries.
It's wild. I didn't know this until a few years ago, but there was like when it comes to fishing rights and fisheries,
Oh,
international disputes.
yeah, it gets crazy. I mean, I know that like the Japanese have been pretty bad at it for sending their boats well into other people's territories and all that because they have that demand for all of that, you know, tuna and everything for the sushi and it just yeah.
Oh yeah, it's weird. Um, yeah, I don't. My brain is a little fried. I'm sorry,
No,
but
no, it's all good.
thinking of like a thousand things at the same time, and
Well,
I just it blows my mind because like you go to the East Coast and you're like, oh, these people are like really nice and chill and stuff like that. But
yeah, this guy ends up with a bullet hole in his dining room. So a lobster buyer by the name of Jeffrey Jobert, that name sounds made up.
yeah,
But that's the East Coast for you. Um, yeah, someone fired a bullet into his dining room wall. So apparently it passed through, several rooms, and the casing ended up in a rocking chair or something like that. Apparently that's occasionally where this fella sits during the daylight hours.
isn't he supposed to be fishing?
No, he's the buyer.
Oh, the buyer.
Yeah. So
Oh,
apparently these
like
this
processing
guy and
plant.
his younger brother came from Halifax to take over their father's processing plant 5 years ago and now employ 100 people. But yeah,
Ooh,
apparently this has become commonplace. So there are roving bands of thugs on the East Coast that will shoot at you for buying someone else's lobsters or not buying your lobsters or something.
that's pretty
So
wild.
yeah.
Also, I'm super interested to know what rifle they were using. This damage
Yeah. It
looks pretty like business.
yeah, I'm just curious how they did it with all of the bands though. I mean that
Uh, what an interesting segue.
yeah. Well, we'll get to that one later. We're gonna go through some more government nonsense before we end on the biggest, latest steaming turd. Um, but yes, apparently they filled tires with gasoline and shoved them under his truck, and it blew up, and all kinds of craziness, all for buying and selling lobsters.
That's wild. Do
Yeah.
you think though that there's a little bit more to it than that?
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me, like all things, like there's probably definitely a lot more to the story. Um, but times are tough right now, right? Like, the budget has not balanced itself. If anything, it's getting worse. And as a result of that, like people's livelihoods are at stake. And when people's livelihoods are at stake, they
Mm.
start to do wilder and crazier things. And then other people will sort of see that there's a hole to be filled, much like Canada Post, and go and do that sort of illegally or try to push people out of the way so that they can, capitalize on something that they see there. So I mean, it's just pushing people to be wilder and crazier and lash out and do violence and stuff like that, all for, what something on the surface anyway seems a little ridiculous, like buying and selling seafood. But yeah, like people's livelihoods.
I I'd also be interested to know too, like on the East Coast, you got quite a few indigenous groups, and I'd be interested to know if there's part of that's part of the conflict.
I
Um,
wouldn't surprise me. I mean, I know it's sort of a big thing here in Ontario, more so on the hunting rights than the fishing
yeah.
rights, but it all kind of,
Well, so it does,
imagine when you live
it
on the
is
coast and you
impacted.
have more access to
Well,
fishing as a
it is
viable option.
impacted
Yeah.
because in a lot of the legislation like that, there is a lot of concessions and exemptions
Yeah.
and just like different requirements for treaty folk
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So I'd be interested to know if there's a bit of a you know
Oh yeah. I'm sure that
intertwining of
there's
that.
definitely some of that where it's more commercially viable for certain groups than other groups because they don't have to deal with some of the licensing and restrictions and all of the things that others do.
Yeah,
Because yeah, and like I said, like yeah, in Ontario, it's more of a hunting thing than a fishing thing because we don't have the ocean right there. So like
yeah.
big commercial fishing stuff doesn't really happen on the lake, and you certainly wouldn't want to eat anything that comes out of it. But the ocean, on the other hand, if I'm allowed to go out every day and don't have any sort of capacity restrictions, then I would definitely take advantage of that, which might piss off certain people. But yeah.
Yeah, wasn't there just a crocodile found in Lake Erie? Yeah.
It could be, or that could
Alligator.
have just been a fish that mutated from all the.
No, this August.
Yeah,
They actually found an alligator in Lake Erie. So who knows?
yeah,
If
weird things like that happen. I mean, I know they found a few sharks in Lake Michigan every now and again, and I think they found one in Lake Ontario. So like,
because people like release their pets.
well, yeah, that's part of it as well, right? But like things do find their way, like the sharks aren't released as pets, they did find their way up river and
Yeah.
eventually, they can survive. And if they're sort of born in the brackish waters, then they can kind of convert from salt water to fresh water and all
Yeah.
that. Um, and whatever we do, like, 'cause I've seen the documentary, don't make them super smart because they'll kill us.
What documentary are you
It
talking
was the it
about?
was the one with LL Cool J. This is Deep Blue Sea. That was a documentary, right?
Okay.
No, it's not.
God.
It's a terrible Hollywood movie, and by terrible I
Oh,
mean absolutely amazing. They make sharks super super smart because why not?
yeah.
Like why make something that is like a prehistoric killer and very efficient at it, super smart? What could go wrong?
All I
Um,
think of, honestly, I'm not into like, I mean, I enjoy a good thriller, but Lake Placid, Betty White, that's
yeah, that's a classic as well.
everything just goes back to that.
Yeah.
Anyways, I've
No, no, no.
detoured the,
That's the name of the game at this podcast is all of the rabbit
it's
holes
good.
and tangents and everything else.
This time of night, like my
Yeah.
brain might well be just like sitting on the couch beside me.
Well, speaking of brains and not working,
Ah,
Trudeau's Liberals survive a third conservative non-confidence vote.
that's wild. But
Yeah, so
it's just the NDP coming in for like a
well,
quick
yeah,
last
but
minute.
there's some amazing sound bites that I've seen, and there's like a video clip where they have put them all together, and it's all Jagmeet saying that he doesn't want Trudeau to be prime minister, that they have torn up the agreement, that
Oh, I
he's
know.
doing this and doing that and everything else. But every time, like three in a row in a short period of time, he continues to prop up the Liberals. So if he doesn't
But
want Justin to be prime minister and he doesn't want all of this stuff and they're not doing the agreement anymore, there must be something else that he wants. I mean, aside from his pension, of course.
so this is the interesting thing, and I think a lot of people disregard Singh, um, in that, first of all, he's the leader of the NDP, but also just in his, I think he's a lot more calculated
Yeah.
than people give him credit for. Because believe it or not, he's kind of like he's propping up the NDP while still being able to push the politicking of the NDP. Because
Yeah.
he can say whatever he wants, but the Liberal Party isn't going to get rid of him
No.
because he's floating them. But then so he just kind of has to say the right things to show up at the vote,
Yeah.
right? But at the end of the day, he's always still pushing that NDP culture. And like
Well,
he keeps on talking about social programming and social programming. And I truly believe he doesn't want Justin Trudeau in there because
yeah.
everybody knows that it's going to, like, we're in a tax crisis, we're in a economic, like, financial crisis. And I
Yeah.
think if you have any kind of brains, you're going to know that that means that your social programming that Singh wants to go through is
Yeah.
not going to be afforded by anybody. So he kind of holds, I think he holds a little bit more power than people give him credit for.
Yeah. I mean, he's managed to hang in there. And I mean, and his
Yeah.
response here is or his explanation for supporting the Liberals is that he's not going to vote in favor of any of their games because that's what the conservatives are doing. They're playing games. So it's like, okay, so
Is that all they can?
you'd rather Trudeau be prime minister over playing games to get rid of him. You know, and this latest motion for all of this was that the Liberals were called on to expand their $250 working Canadians rebate to include vulnerable adults and fully retired seniors and people who rely on disability benefits because they aren't going to be getting the $250, which at this point, like, I don't even think buys one set of groceries for anybody.
So this is okay. That's also the most ridiculous thing because if Singh actually knew how disability worked for people who were on it,
Yeah.
the minute you get any government assistance outside of that, it reduces your disability.
Yeah, well, I mean, like I think all things is that the politicians don't really understand anything that they're voting for or voting against. They just
Yeah.
this sounds like it's a good thing. So yeah,
Well, people think it's free money, but like, okay, so $250 per person, per adult that makes less than 150,000 a year.
yeah.
Do we have a ballpark figure of what that's going to cost the taxpayer?
Apparently the government estimates this would include some 18.7 million people and cost nearly $4.7 billion dollars.
Right. So then what is our tax load going to look like moving forward?
But again, like all things, so where does this like how many people in this country make over $150,000?
Great
And so,
question.
you know, they don't get the money, but like they're paying a portion of it, but also at $4.7 billion dollars, I don't think we have 4.7 billion people in this country. So,
Yeah.
you know, you're just getting your money back is essentially what it is. So rather than give people their money back, how about we just don't take the money from them in the first place? Like if there's
Wisdom.
a surplus of money that they can just go and go, oh, well, we could just give you $250 back. You know, they're not saying that like we are going to generate this money from the people that make over $150,000 and tax them only and then split that amongst the 18.7 million people. No, everyone is getting taxed on this, and then some of the people are getting a portion of it back while other people are not. Like this is the stupidest thing ever, and $250 isn't going to do anything to help anyone. Like if that's
So how many, like, okay, is this benefit just going to employed people? And
yes,
then this is what Singh is trying to say.
that's what they're trying to do is they're trying
Right.
to get this to go to more people, like to, you know, retired people and everything else. So like it'll go to more people, which will end up driving the cost of it up, which means that people are going to pay more tax. But again, instead of giving them $250 back, give them a tax decrease
Yeah, that would be ideal.
because it doesn't cost us anything then. People just keep their money. They don't get it
So
back because they didn't have to give it to the government in the first place.
as of October,
Yeah.
there is 20.6 million people employed. Of that 20.6, about 1 million of them make over 150K. So that
Yeah.
means that you're looking at 5 or 6
Yeah.
being, I guess, million being getting this benefit. So that's like almost $5 billion, right? 4.9, $5 billion. Okay.
Yeah.
What do you know what the average tax load is per person or a debt load is per person at this point?
Oh, probably something outrageous. I mean, I know that like Ontario has the largest sub-sovereign debt of anyone in the world.
I just can't imagine that we
Yeah.
have that money
Yeah.
sitting around, right?
No, we don't. We absolutely don't.
So
But
1.4 trillion is our current debt. So then I guess
yeah.
if you I can't even do the math on that.
No, I mean
One four
that's just it.
trillion
Like,
divided by like
well,
the
that's what I
20
mean. It's like
or
we
20
have
million people.
our country is in massive, massive debt. The average person, like not even including the government debt, is also likely in debt a fair amount of money at the moment, or very paycheck to paycheck, right? And there's the government thinks that like giving us $250 is gonna help us. Like, fuck right off. Like,
Right.
that's
It's
not
not,
it's not
no.
enough money, but also you're just giving me some of my money back.
y-
But
I
yeah.
don't even think it's, yeah. I think it's just way messier than that because
Oh,
I
absolutely.
think it's such a scheme because and I know that everybody knows this. Because if you look at it from the perspective, and maybe I'm overthinking this, but if you look at it from the perspective, it's a borrowing. There's no money there.
Hmm.
So it's not
Oh
even
yeah, but they're
like if
borrowing
it
it
was
like,
giving us our money back, we wouldn't be paying interest on it,
oh yeah, but yeah, that's the
for
it's
that.
they've spent so much of our money that
Yeah,
like they're borrowing
there's still
future
more.
money, but not even
Yeah,
future money, like future money. And so it's all pointless. They
yeah.
should just not take it from the to begin with. But that's the way that unfortunately this country works at the moment. And yeah, but as a result of all of this, yes, it's a surprise to nobody. The vote of no confidence once again doesn't go through, and the liberals live on again, sadly.
Yeah.
Um,
It's wild to me.
yeah. Well, other things that are wild.
Oh, good. I just did the math. We're at, if we add that 4 point whatever, 4.9, did I say billion
Yeah.
for the average working individual, and I'm just assuming it's the average working individual because we're
Yeah.
the ones that pay the taxes on that. My current debt load is just over 68,000.
Oh, just?
Just.
Yeah. Well,
Well, with this
$250
rebate
will help.
added, with
Yeah.
this rebate, I added that to the debt because it's not money. There's no money in a
Yeah,
bank.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
not like a extra
yeah, yeah,
money
yeah.
around.
Yeah.
So
No.
yeah,
Well,
there you go.
CSIS
Mm-hmm.
is saying that it will finally disclose some information about the foreign interference to Pierre Poilievre. He is currently, up to now, resisted getting the clearance he needs to get the full report, because if he does get the full report, he will then be sworn to secrecy and he can't talk about it anymore. Whereas if he has not had the information, he can wildly speculate about it or make educated guesses, is probably a better way to put that. But they will be finalizing plans to disclose some information.
Oh, interesting.
Yes.
So why do you think he's now willing to get that clearance?
Well, I think it's going to be, well,
Or do you think that it's going to be assigned to him, for lack of a better word?
yeah, I think they're probably trying to silence him a little bit, but like they can't force him to get it, but also like it looks weird if he continues to keep going without, like you can't just bury your head in the sand either, right? And go la 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 la. I can't hear you. I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
Yeah,
Um,
okay. Trudeau is saying that he wants CSIS to give this
yeah.
information with or without the clearance.
So that's why
So it's
CSIS
a
is
muddling
doing the
effect.
things that it's doing in order to be able to give him some money, or sorry, not money, some information to,
Yeah,
but
that's interesting. I think it's
yeah,
interesting because it's hard to, I think the public is going to view this as like they could be pretty confused by it.
yeah,
Like I think Polyev is doing what he wants to do because he can continue the call out this way.
yeah,
And he really is, there hasn't really been anybody that's kind of had the same tenacity as him in terms
yeah.
of that.
Well, yeah,
Um,
and like as he's the official opposition,
yeah,
he's not actually required to get a security clearance or swear an oath of secrecy
right.
about anything. So like that's part of
This
the
weird,
beauty of it, right? Is that he
yeah.
has this ability to speak on these things and question these things, and
Mhm.
can't be censored for them because he doesn't know the information, and he's not, oh
Well,
no, you can't give this away because national security, because like he could just
right.
make shit up, even if it ends up being true, and not get in trouble for it.
Well, and that's the thing is that based on this article, and based on, I guess, how I assume Justin Trudeau still operates,
Yeah.
is that, it's suggesting that some of the information released will exonerate this claim
Yeah.
against Trudeau that of, interference and all the other things that were involved in his election process and oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. And all that stuff. So it kind of sounds like there's again a manipulation happening where they're just disclosing, very specific information that has been cleared to do so because it will exonerate
Yeah.
some people,
Yeah. Some other
right? But it's
interest.
obviously not,
Yeah.
it's obviously not anything. That's like somebody finding Epstein's black book or releasing names and they're all just like degenerates already, like
Yeah.
criminals.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Like, yeah.
well, okay, you got the bad pages of that book,
Yeah.
right?
Where are the
Ones
ones
that
that
were
we don't know are
expected.
bad? Like, yeah. Like,
Yeah,
great. Like now we know that these bad people are like super bad, but like where are the ones that
yeah,
we thought were good? Yeah.
yeah.
It's like, oh well,
Well, and that's what I mean.
this
It's
guy
it's
already
like,
got arrested for being a pedo for something else.
yeah,
Well, yeah, let's release his name. And you're like, great.
yeah, not helpful. But that's what I mean. I kind of think that that's what's happening, and I do think it's going to confuse the average person who, is kind of like a medium engaged,
Yeah.
political follower who's like, well, why wouldn't Polyev get this security clearance? What is he hiding?
Well,
All
yeah,
this stuff. It's
but
really
it's like, no, it's
spinning its
not.
wheel.
It's so that he doesn't have to hide it, which seems contrary.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But
I
yes,
know.
Radio Canada here has reported that based on confidential sources, that agents of the Indian government allegedly interfered with Patrick Brown, who coincidentally happens to be the mayor of Brampton.
Oh,
They've interfered with his 2022 run for the leadership of the Conservative Party.
interfered how?
Well, I guess that's what we'll have to wait and see because none of these things have really
Like they haven't
been talked about.
manifested
Yeah,
in a way
but
you think that they would want to be manifested, right?
well, I mean, and this is the thing that I guess will finally, hopefully, at some point in time, come out. But like in the report from CSIS, India and China both have interfered in the last couple of elections. In what capacity and on for what side, we don't know. But
Mm.
it seems here at least that like the Indian government has somehow attempted or did interfere with the Conservative Party elections.
Yeah,
So they're trying to influence who becomes the leader of the Conservative Party, whether that's for their gain in controlling that party or in order to boost another party, like it to make it easier for the other party to win. I guess we don't know. That will all still
oh,
be coming out, but
this one out with Brown, it's saying that um his campaign co-chair, who was also an MP,
yeah,
because he was an MP too. Oh no, he's a mayor. Um, she was the one that was coerced to drop out by the Indian government.
yeah, but
That's what the allegations are in regards to that.
yeah. Either way, we're not sure what's
Messy.
going on. We still don't know what MPs got into power or didn't get into power or whatever as a result of this. The names have not been named, much like the Epstein list. There may or may not be some crossovers there.
Goodness.
But yeah,
The dumpster fire is floating down the road.
and speaking of dumpster fires, the most nonsensical Trudeau gun ban yet. So for those that are just tuning in for the first time ever, this is a very pro-gun podcast.
Yep.
There was a new ban that was announced. What was it? Thursday, I think it was Thursday night.
The 4th? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
It was December 4th.
So previously, May 2020, there was an order in council that banned ARs, XCRs, M1 carbines or whatever, M1As, a couple of things. I mean, the government likes to say like 25,000 different things, but that's because they list every make and model. But effectively, it banned kind of like 8 families of some stuff, and then based on some other things like muzzle energy and bore diameter and some other. But so a bunch of stuff got banned, and we were kind of told that like, okay, these are the things that are the problem. You could go about your business now and buy the other guns. Yeah, we may or may not do something about them in future, but those are the ones that are considered still legal for use. So people go about their business for the last 4 years, 5 years almost, buy up a bunch of stuff so that they can order to continue enjoying their hobby or for sporting purposes or for hunting purposes. And then there were some rumors that we kind of talked about last week or the week before where Polly was kind of starting rumors that there was another gun ban coming because the 35th anniversary of the École Polytechnique massacre was upcoming. So so that Trudeau could get his photo op there, he would have to do some more gun bans. So the new gun bans come out and effectively all magazine fed semi-automatic rifles now are toast.
Yeah.
And even crazier, the government has said that some of these things are going to be sent to the Ukraine in order to help them fight the war against Russia.
That just blows my mind. The memes are pretty on point,
Oh, absolutely.
but like, ugh.
Yeah. I mean, the crazy thing about this though is that if you go through the list, there's a bunch of shit on there that is like ridiculous.
There
So
wasn't a first, there wasn't a first ordering council though. Like, didn't they have like airsoft and paintball guns listed there too?
so it,
Suggestive of that anyway.
so yes, sort of. The original one listed like a bunch of makes and models of all the things, especially on like the AR-15 side of it, because like there are so many companies that make those. So
Mhm.
there was a lot of confusion and misunderstanding. So people said things like, oh, there's a website on there because AR15.com was on there. But AR15.com did produce a lower receiver at one point. Whether there were any in the country or not, we don't know. But as they did produce a make and model of this that was called the AR15.com or whatever, that was on the list. So there was a website on there, but also it was a real product.
Okay.
Uh, they also said that Black Rifle Coffee Company was on there. It was not.
I was gonna say,
It was Black Rifle Company,
oh
which
shoot.
is another company. Then there was an airsoft gun that was allegedly on there, but that same company also made an actual airsoft or actual AR-15 and not an airsoft one. So that was on there. But airsoft was also potentially on the chopping block because they are replicas. So that's why
Yeah,
there was
they
a
look
lot
like
of confusion. And so, there was a bunch of people being like, wait a minute, these aren't actual guns. But the way that our laws work, replicas, like, so for Canada previously, what they had to do was that like replicas that don't shoot aren't allowed or that are under a certain feet per second in velocity were not allowed. So for airsoft guns to come into the country, they actually had to crank the velocity up in order to make them real guns, but not real guns to the point where you would need a license to own them because our laws are stupid and don't make sense.
yes.
But if you
So
take a
is
look,
this,
yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
no,
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 no.
go ahead. Ask your question.
Well, I'm just wondering, is this just an extension of what is it,
Yes.
C21?
So this is so sort of the progression is the original ban list of May 2020. And then they
And
did
that, but that
C.
was Bill C20. Oh, Bill
Well, in that
C21
case, this was the
after that.
original
Oh,
one with all the AR ones. And then C21 was the pistol freeze. But in
right,
C21, they put in a definition of what an assault style rifle
right.
is.
So
So
there's a little bit
now
more
that there is
clarity.
a legal definition of what an assault style rifle is, coded in law because it was a bill, they are now using that lawful legal definition to go back and go, okay, all of these things in the latest list are assault style weapons.
Why does this, there's so many layers to the Canadian political system
Yes.
that I'm a little bit confused why order in council happened on this. Because order in council, correct me if I'm wrong, is kind of something that's put forward like by the governor general and the Queen's Privy Council, right?
Yeah. It
Okay,
is
but that's usually
normally,
passing bills,
well, yeah,
right?
so this is the
And
interesting
like
thing.
royal
So
assent. So
yeah, so
why
like
is
an order in council is normally used to make small minor
it's
administrative
right,
changes,
right,
not
Right.
regulatory because it's not, you can't create
Not really a
law from it.
regulatory body,
But you can't create
I
law
guess.
without it going through a bill.
Thank you. This is what I'm trying to connect in my brain.
Yeah, so that's why when they did that originally, the CCFR has sued the
Yeah,
government. And so the interesting thing about all of this is that, like, today, the court case resumed with the CCFR and the government based on them enacting the original order in council from 2020 and
right.
how
And
this is not, if you want to
it's not
change,
going
like,
through a bill. It's not a legislative process. They're not making a
yeah,
legislative process. Okay. So I was not for quite a while
yeah,
there. I was like, what on earth is happening? Because my brain was not following the path or the chain of process
yeah.
that
Well, but that's
normally
because
is supposed to
it's
occur.
not. That's the problem, is that it is not
Yeah.
following that. So, like,
Okay. I'm not crazy. Well, I am, but
so now that there is a legal definition of what is and isn't an assault style
mhm,
weapon, they can use an order in council to move things to say, oh, well, this regulation already exists. We can
right.
use this to move some things around per se.
But
But the
aren't they
rule,
reclassifying them as prohibited?
yes, but that's because now the C-21 was a bill and
Yeah.
it passed and got royal assent.
Yeah.
And that definition is now part of law. They can go, okay, well,
So
here are
then is
things that are
this,
now,
yeah, I was gonna say, so then is this OIC like
it's still a shady way
kind
of
of
doing things.
redoing the original list, but
It's
under the C-21 umbrella?
Well, so they didn't add in all of the things that were already banned. They're adding in things now that got missed.
So
So
they're
this is,
retroactively doing this, but
well,
even though C-21 is supposed to be the umbrella legislation,
yeah, so
it was
they're sort of
enacted
going about it.
afterwards.
Well, they're sort of going about it in the right way now, and I hate to
Yeah,
use those terms,
I know
but
what you mean.
like the original order in council happened,
Yeah.
then the bill which defined what an assault style rifle is,
Hmm.
and now another order in council to go and prohibit not all of the things that were prohibited before, but the things that got missed.
Missed.
And so now that there's a legal definition, they can go in. The crazy thing about this, though, is that, like, there's a shitload of 22s on there. So, like,
Yeah.
22 caliber, like 22 long rifle. So, like, little, like, slightly more powerful than a pellet gun
Yeah.
is now considered an assault style weapon and potentially a weapon of war that could be sent to the Ukraine.
I did see that clip where Putin literally went like this and started laughing.
Unfortunately, that is subtitles applied to a video from something else, but it is hilarious,
Well, that's what I mean. Because I feel
right? And
like
there's the other one, and it's got like
so many
Zelensky and
people
all the other guys with
in the
like
pink
pink
guns.
GSG
Yeah.
16s or whatever strapped to
Yeah.
them. Now, I don't think they're going to actually send 22s to the Ukraine, but also the whole idea of sending any of this stuff to the Ukraine is ridiculous because it's like, come on. Like, it's going to be a hodgepodge of things from all over the place. So, like, if you're trying to do anything and everything that has to do with any sort of military campaign, one would understand that, like, standardization is maybe kind of important. Like, you
Well,
can't have
here's the thing.
everyone using different calibers, and then even the people that have the same caliber using different style magazines and all. Like, that doesn't work when you have a military, because if you and I are going out to do military things and we have two totally different rifles,
It just
how are you and
doesn't.
I supposed to share resources? We can't.
Yeah.
It's just
You
not
can't. No.
possible.
No,
Also,
but
it's
I mean, I
ridiculous.
think
Like,
it kind of tracks along the whole process here
yeah.
because, you know, I guess in the state of the world, like we know that war makes money and
Yes.
it's pretty obvious that all of that is happening. There's multiple pretty
Yeah.
notorious or, you know, well
Is
followed wars that are
also
happening in the world right now.
brilliant for money laundering, as we have seen several
Absolutely.
times as of late.
But like I guess my
Well,
brain still kind of looks at things a little logically. And if you were the leader of a
That's your
country
problem. Yeah.
that was like connected, we're not that far away from this war, from one of the war zones. Okay. We're quite close actually. And um like everybody knows that Canada, if we were to encounter any kind of altercation, we're probably now at the place where we would survive a day,
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Trudeau is astounding me in that I think he's pissed off a lot of governments now. And
Well, I
he has
imagine if we
no
start,
intention of like
yeah,
protecting his people. And then you wonder why things like prepper culture has accelerated like mad.
I believe you mean right-wing extremism in the canning community because being too prepared is a nationalist thing and is not allowed. But
Well, I listened to a guy talk about this actually, and he said like he did like his thesis on preppers.
yeah,
And I was so fascinated by it because I'm like, what? And he's like, when you live in a country, he's like, this is what I found is that you go to these prepper communities and these like these really like deep hardcore prepper cultures, like yeah, compound living of sorts,
yeah,
right? And he's like, you look at them, and the reason that prepping culture has become so accelerated is that these subcultures are found in countries where there is a lack of trust in the government to provide for you. You go
yeah,
to places like the Cold War was the most recent, you know, large scale protective kind of thing, I think. You go to places like I think it was Switzerland, he said, that the, you know, the bomb shelters that they built met 110% of the population because they assumed that there would be tourists in the country if something went down. So they accounted for that. So
yeah,
they don't really have a prepper culture. Whereas, like in the US, and I'm just going to lump Canada in there, probably even worse. But in the US, when
yeah,
they did those prepper, like, or not prepper, bomb shelters, they accounted only for the political elite.
yeah.
So of course,
Yeah, and you wonder
everybody
why we
knows
don't
that.
trust them, right? Like, yeah,
Yeah, everybody knows that, and you're like, oh
yeah,
yeah, no, these folks are not
well,
nationalist, you know, right wingers.
yeah.
They are individuals who are like,
People
I
that
know the
realize their
government's
government
not
doesn't trust
taking
them. Yeah,
care of me.
yeah. Like you
Yeah.
can tour the Diefenbunker and it's not that big, right? Like you can
Oh,
go
I
and see
believe it.
exactly how many people would fit in there. But yeah, this whole thing
Oh,
is
yeah.
crazy. And so like, if you go through the list, the fact that there are like magazine fed 22s on there is absolutely ridiculous. Like this is supposed to be like a these are weapons of war, and then they have 22 caliber rifles that are meant for plinking and like teaching younger people how to shoot guns responsibly. But you
Mhm.
go through and there's other stuff on there, like they have still also included like rocket launchers and grenades and stuff like that that got missed on that first go around when they banned Javelin missiles from civilian use, which we were never allowed to have to begin with. But for example, the Barrett 98, which is a sniper rifle, a 50 caliber sniper rifle, is on the list. Well,
Yeah.
the May 2020 Ordering Council banned anything with a muzzle energy of over 10,000 joules, of which a 50 caliber rifle is. So while it was not prohibited by name, it was
Yeah.
already prohibited effectively several years
But
ago.
these, but a
But they
lot
got to
of,
make that list look big, right?
but it's
So they
also,
start,
do you not also think though that half of the people that are editing these lists are just people that play Call of Duty and that's it?
oh, but I mean, you bring up a wonderful point. So on that list also is a Walther sniper rifle, right? That was popular in video games,
Okay.
but there were only 174 of them that were ever made.
Yeah.
If you happen to get your hands on one of those, which would be very difficult given there were only 174 of them ever made, and they stopped making them several years ago. They are stupid expensive when they came out, and
Yeah.
even more so now that they don't make them and they are even rarer. So these are not things that are like it would be the thing that someone playing a video game would know of because in the video game it's there.
Right. That's what
But
I'm
in
saying.
like
Or
real
like a
life,
collector of or something.
you do not see these in real life unless you have a very large budget, right? Like these
This is
things don't
wild.
exist, especially in this country. They do not exist. People are
Yeah.
not going and committing crimes with these things,
No.
right? There was also two Rhodesian submachine guns that were on the list that I had never even heard of, nor had many of the other panelists heard of. And we are fans of the era and location, and we'd never heard of them. And we're like, what is this? Like, there was stuff on there that just, there's maybe one in the country, maybe of a bunch of this
Right.
stuff, right? Like, we're
Right.
like, this
Yeah.
is not, you know, anything. But they banned 22s, they banned 9 mil carbines, which has started a whole
There's
thing.
a lot of 22s on this list.
Yeah. Like there's an Anschutz 22 on there that is specifically designed to meet German laws, which apparently are quite strict, but is now
Yeah.
considered a weapon of war in this country, along with all of your GSG 15s and your 22
Yeah.
Sturmgewehrs and stuff like that, where like a bunch of these companies created uh, firearms that have the look of historic firearms, but the function of them is not there, and they are 22s.
Yeah.
But they look scary.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it's
And
absolutely insane. So you
that's
look at like all the things going on right now in our country, the postal strike that the government hasn't bothered to step in and do anything about. Apparently, I mean, I guess there's a bit of a problem with shootings and stuff happening in the East Coast for lobsters. I mean, I
yeah.
don't think any of the shooting with those is done with guns that were legally obtained. Um,
No.
there was another shooting in Toronto recently. There was a big stabbing. All of these things going on. And how does the government focus its time? Going after people that own 22s rather than focusing on anything that is going to make life better or safer for anybody. Right? Like insane.
Yeah. And I think that like, is this just a make work project to
I don't know.
make people feel
I
safer?
would not be surprised if, and this is me purely speculating here.
Okay.
The rumors came out, a couple of weeks ago of Polly saying that there are new gun bans coming down the pipe.
Okay.
Previously, though, the Minister of Security or Safety or whatever had said there would be no new bans.
Okay.
Then all of a sudden, this rumor happens as we approach the anniversary of the Polytechnic massacre.
Okay.
And then the threats probably started with them, quietly being like, hey, Justin, um, if you don't make good on this rumor, you won't be invited to attend our remembrance ceremony and get your photo op. So it almost feels to me like there was a bit of a rush to put this list out, which is why there's certain ridiculous things on it.
Yeah.
But they had to make the list big enough to appease, the Polysouvant people so that Justin would get the invite to go and do the thing. And the
Yeah.
only way that they could do this was through, an order in council because they're like, okay, we're going to put this out and do this, but uh in February we're going to review this and add some more things because there's a bunch of stuff on here that was not included, oddly enough. And I think some of it is an oversight. I won't name names of things, but there are several 180B variants that were not named in the list while others were. And I think that's purely oversight because they were trying to rush to get the list out.
Got it.
But then there was some other stuff. So in the announcement, they also said that they're getting a committee together, which will include one Indigenous person to discuss some of these things because we don't want to, as we talked about early, treaty rights and hunting rights and all of those things are a thing. And
Well,
so
they
they don't
really
want to.
pissed people off in the first OAC.
Oh, absolutely it
That
did
was
because a
huge
lot of
outrage.
those, and so noticeably absent, and it was the question was asked specifically about it, the SKS.
Yeah. Which,
So
yeah, yeah. Like I
like a
am
literal
very
assault
not.
weapon because it is
Yeah,
literally used by many Soviet nations as a military rifle.
but it's also used quite a bit. If I'm not mistaken, it's also used quite a bit as a hunting
Well,
rifle.
yes. So it is an inexpensive
Yeah.
semi-automatic rifle that fares quite well in cold weather.
Wasn't it the prototype for the AK?
No,
Ish.
so it's Soviet. So like it
Yeah.
came first, if I am not mistaken, and then they made multiple
Yeah.
things. But so the Type 81, which is a popular rifle in Canada now because it was one of the ones that was not banned in the original go around, so a lot of people went and bought it, is like an upgraded SKS, where it's sort of like a weird cross between an SKS and an AK. But
Oh.
that
Okay,
was
so
the Type
uh,
81 was prohibited like last week, but the SKS, shockingly to everyone, was not on the list to the point where like in the press conference, people were like,
right.
hang on, why isn't the SKS on this list? Because like, it meets this definition. And they're like, well, indigenous people is basically the short answer, right? So they have this committee that they've put together with like a single indigenous person on it who probably doesn't own guns or hunt, would be my guess. And they're going to consult with this one person and be like,
Yeah.
do you use these for hunting? And he's gonna be like, nope.
So the SKS, I found where I had seen this before. It was replaced by the 47.
Yeah.
So it wasn't the prototype or anything, but it's kind of like as progression of
Yeah. If
the
they made a
warring
better
and
design,
stuff,
so it got
they just
replaced.
made a
Yeah.
better design. But it's very like there's some mechanisms that are very similar,
Yeah.
and this, because it comes out of the same, probably the
Same
same
factories.
armament
Yeah.
factory
Same
that,
factories and designers and everything else, right?
But I mean, again, it kind of goes back to this concept of politicking.
Yeah.
The people writing these lists and the people that are making these designs are not individuals that are, gunsmiths and that sort of thing. Like, you can even look at, I was just checking out like StatCan to find out, oh, okay, have we seen like a significant increase in deaths by shooting?
Yeah.
Deaths by stabbing, that sort of thing. And I mean, like, we've seen probably over the last 23, almost 25 years, I would say it's a 50% increase in shooting.
Yeah.
Comparing with the population increase, I don't know if that would be like a standard percentage. Like, has our population increased 50%? I think it's 32% in the
Well, yeah, it
last
was
10
like
years,
that.
right?
Yeah, it was like that million people in the last year. But
Yeah,
like,
so
yeah,
I think that we're probably close to like a 50%. I don't know.
yeah,
I'm pulling this in my hat right now. But I don't know what our population increase is. But if we're looking at like, there's not been crazy increases in, violent crimes.
no proportion to
Like,
the
or
increase in
sorry, should
population.
I say homicides
Yeah,
by this method?
there's been a lot recently, but I still think that like in proportion to our population and the increase of our population, it hasn't increased at the same rate. But
Yeah.
also like they've done these gun bans that have been in effect, and it hasn't slowed any of that. If anything, it's
Not
only gotten
really.
worse. but this is the thing. So like there's some other stuff on this list or not on this list. So like the SKS, very popular hunting rifle for, the native population of Canada. Also noticeably not on the list is the Valmet. So the Valmet is a actual AK-47 that
Okay.
was specifically exempted from the prohibitions when they prohibited the AK by name. And can you guess why?
Why?
Well, the Canadian government went out and bought a bunch of hunting rifles for the natives at one point and gave them to them.
Velmets.
Bingo!
Which one is it?
So the Valmet 58, I believe, is the model. They don't make them anymore, but it is a Finnish rifle that is a slightly modified AK-47. Where it is modified is in the back end of it. So all of the working parts.
Modified Polish
Yeah.
AK-47.
So if you look at it,
Finish.
they're pretty much identical. The biggest difference is that the Valmet is chambered in 308, so 7.62 by 51,
Yeah.
as opposed to the popular like Soviet round of 7.62 by 39, so a slightly larger bullet in the Valmet. And the AK would have like a wooden stock and a pistol grip, like an assault style rifle.
Yeah.
But the Valmet just has a traditional style hunting stock, although there are adapters to turn.
I was gonna say it
The-
does have adaptations, but it certainly
But-
looks a lot less.
Yeah. But other than that, the design, so this is when you talk about like the firearms and they go, oh, it's a variant, right?
Yeah.
This is directly a variant because they've basically just taken the design and modified the design very slightly to the point where like, okay, some of the working parts might not be interchangeable because they made a slightly larger caliber version of it, right? So certain things might be elongated to fit the
Right.
larger cartridges in there. But the design is the same. Like if you look at the safety selector, it's the same. You look at all of the working parts, they are exactly the same. This is an AK variant that is to this day, like as of right now, if you could find one, you could buy it legally with your non-restricted license and continue to hunt with it.
It's wild.
Now, if you could find one, they're like, and this is like
Rare.
pre-ban, like pre-2020 ban pricing, $6,000.
Yeah.
Because like even then it was rare as a legal AK. So I can't even imagine what one would be going for now, probably closer to $8,000 or $10,000
I was
because
gonna say everybody's sucking them up.
yeah, but if you were to go to a reserve, well, you'd probably find a bunch of them. You might also probably find a few actual full auto AKs and maybe some like rocket launchers, but that's a whole
I was
other.
gonna say we'll find a
Yeah.
lot of things, I think.
Yeah. I mean, if
Yeah,
you remember the whole Oka standoff, there were some things there that might have looked like Valmets, but they were not. They were AK-47s.
It's so interesting. I actually did a study on like disputes like that. And that was at when I was in university and I was in Hamilton, and that's when, the whole Six Nations down there was on their standoff and their blockade. And, we talked about Ipperwash and we talked about Oka, and it's like, it's astounding. In Oka, they literally built a different highway to avoid this situation.
Yeah.
But this is the part that kind of blows my mind. And I really have nothing against, like, I think it's a government induced situation.
Yeah.
So I really don't have anything against like treaty Indians. And I don't have anything against like indigenous populations. Like, I think the part that pisses most people off is that they want that freedom. Like the fact that the government's willing to like build a highway around a blockade instead of dealing with the situation, while individuals have what nobody else in Canada can ascertain. Like
Yeah.
we can't get that shit. But yet, you know, a bunch of people go up to Ottawa with pickup trucks and transports, and you get the whole like
Yeah.
multiple police forces breathing down your neck in ways that, you
Yeah.
know,
Well,
Oka
and
couldn't even
yeah,
understand.
we go and block border crossings for a couple of days, and then all of a
Oh
sudden,
yeah.
like emergency act gets called on us. They block rail transport lanes for weeks at a time, or go and trash construction equipment at
Yeah,
sites and do
that's
all of
right.
that. And I'm not saying, I'm not making a judgment on those or whether they're justified or not, but
But it's
the
just that
reaction
getting
to
away from it,
the
getting away from
reaction
it is
to that group
astounding.
of people is, it I mean, it's difficult, right? Like we have certainly treated that segment of our population throughout history in a very, very shitty manner.
Well, and
Um,
I think it's
but
yes.
also to the point where like we are now so terrified of offending that group of people that we will like capitulate to them. And you're
Yeah.
like, well, no.
Or you make decisions like
Yeah.
this, like making this list
Yeah.
around specifications and needs. And I am
Yeah.
not saying that they shouldn't be taken into consideration because,
Hmm.
you know, hunting is part of
Yeah,
indigenous
absolutely.
and all that stuff. And I
But
do think that I do think that that's relevant, but where you're going to lose people and what it's doing is it's actually creating, you know, a little bit of contention.
well,
And when I say a little
but
bit, I mean that's a spectrum, but
well,
a little bit of contention because now we're the jealous older sibling who
yeah.
watches the youngest sibling. And I'm, you know, obviously this is just an example,
But
but get spoiled while we did all the hard work
yeah. Well, and
or
that's
work in
the
high
crazy thing
pits,
though, is
right?
like exactly how that works, right? So all of the stuff that was banned in 2020, and all of the stuff that was banned last week, and all of the
Mhm.
stuff that potentially is going to get banned in February when they go and do their consultations and all of that.
Yeah.
Well, I have like as of the minute that that list was released, I had to stop using any of those things.
Mhm.
Not allowed. However,
Right.
if I had a different ethnicity, I would be able to continue to use those things that I was allowed to use as non-restricted items previously and
Yeah.
go hunting with to continue to go hunting with until I can find a suitable replacement.
Yeah.
And okay, like, but they aren't the only people that use hunting as a way to put food on their table. There's a lot of people that do
Yeah.
that in a meaningful way. And I'm not talking about the people that like have shit tons of money and just do it because they can, but like there are
I,
multiple people that are like subsistence hunters that
but
are not native.
I also think like this is the
So
part that is astounding to me is that all of the arguments that people have, and when I say people, I mean usually it's individuals who are diehard to a political party or watch the news instead of figuring it out for themselves or swallow whatever Facebook tells
yeah,
them, that sort of thing. Individuals like that usually have an argument that is just made of sand, right?
yeah,
Like it's the argument of, oh, well, you know, you don't need to hunt, or people are wasteful when
yeah,
they hunt, or those poor animals. And it's like, okay, that's not a good example because
yeah,
even if I could go to the grocery store, the average person is paying a tag price
yeah,
for almost a free month's worth of meat. Okay,
yeah,
you want to talk about subsidizing a grocery bill? That's a
yeah.
great way to do it. It's also a good pastime and it's a heavily regulated industry. So
Well, that
it's
and
like,
like the part that pisses me off a bit. So how is it somehow part of their culture,
yeah,
but not anyone else's culture? Because
yeah,
like, okay, yes, they were here long before anyone else was.
sure.
But the people that like grew up and like thousands of years ago in Europe, they also hunted, and their
Absolutely.
ancestors have like hunting is part of every ethnic group heritage. There's not a single ethnicity on this planet that did not hunt at some point in time to put food on their table. So it is part of all of our
Absolutely.
heritage. But it drives me crazy when they go, okay, these are not hunting rifles, these are weapons of war.
Right.
But if you used it to hunt, you can continue to hunt with it. And the fact that it was non-restricted means that you could have hunted with it previously as well. But we're going to ignore that.
Yeah.
But also, these are weapons of war, and we're going to send them to the Ukraine. But we're not going to send all of them to the Ukraine because 22s are not weapons of war. But you still can't have
Right.
one because it's a weapon of war. So, like, they're disproving all
Oh,
of
it
their
works out.
bullshit in the thing when they're telling us that they're taking it away from us because it's not for hunting, it's only for war. They're like, but
Yeah.
you literally just said that like I could keep hunting with it if I happen to be native because it's a suitable hunting rifle, but it's also a
Yeah,
weapon
but
of
that's where
war,
it
but it's
gets
also
into
not a
like,
weapon of war because the Ukraine doesn't want it. Like, then what is it? What is it? Make it make
yeah.
sense.
Well, but that's the problem. And like a person could easily go stir crazy trying to
Yeah.
figure it out.
You can't. Like you
You really can't. But the other side of it too is that we've gotten into this process of identity politics where, you're making decisions. The government is
yeah.
making decisions not based on actual government
No.
mandates, but like, oh, what's the popular vote so I can maintain power,
Yeah.
right? And that's obviously problematic, but I would also say that, we live in a place where uh we the people
Yeah.
really suck at sorting it out,
Yep.
right? And I guess my next question would be whether you personally think, our advocacy groups like the NFA, NFA,
Yep.
NFR, NFA,
The NFA, the
I know, and
CSSA,
then
and the CCFR, the three
like, right,
civilian ones, and then there's the CS AAA for the industry side of things.
right. So do you feel like they are actually doing enough as advocacy bodies or doing the right things as advocacy bodies to not just stop what's happening, but to proactively reduce the continuation of, things like this occurring? Because at
It-
some point we are just going to be stuck with paintball guns and airsoft.
well, no, because those are going to get banned too.
Also true,
Because
because they look
those are
scary.
training for weapons of war, right?
Water guns.
Yeah,
That's what we will get. Water
yeah.
guns.
I I don't know. I think all of the groups that exist have their place or had their place. I think some are more effective than others, and it really depends on like what point in time you're talking about, right? Like, and I mean, the NFA at one point was like our only organization, and they did a lot.
Mhm.
But then over the years and some like any organization, like you start getting the wrong people in the wrong places and they get mismanaged. And I
Well, it
think
goes
it
back to
kind of,
politicking, right? It becomes
yeah, and it sort of
into its own.
fell apart. I think it was not doing anything effective and they were full of shit for quite a while. I think they've maybe gotten better in the very short recent past. Once they've had some leadership changes and things like that, and they're actually starting to lobby again. Um, the CSSA, I think, is maybe the one that's currently not quite as effective, but they have been fairly effective in the past.
They honestly, as somebody who's a mediocre,
Yeah,
firearms individual, I would say that the CSSA is like, it's very informative to the
yeah.
to this populace, but in terms of
What
sorting
they're,
out situations,
yeah, and
like,
again, like they, in the not too distant but not too recent past, they did some good and were part
yeah,
of the thing, right? Like, and I think at the moment the CCFR is maybe the better organization out there, but even they are having some issues in like And I get maybe they're shifting focus at the moment,
Sure.
but and like while I consider a lot of the people and at the highest level friends of mine, I still need to maybe call out some things where they haven't necessarily gone and done lobbying as of late.
Right.
Now, is that because it's kind of pointless, like 9 years into a liberal government that doesn't listen? It doesn't want to talk to you?
Well,
I
and I mean,
absolutely. Like, you can
also
only bang
wonders,
your head
like,
against the wall so many times, right?
but
Like
they
before
also
you're
have
like,
this lawsuit going on
but
too.
but yes, and I think that is if it's like, okay, we're gonna stop talking to shitty liberal MPs because like they're not listening anyways and
Yeah.
direct our resort, like I would agree that if it's a conscious decision to pull resources from here and redirect them to here,
Yep.
absolutely I agree with that choice.
Yeah.
And so like I can only look at the information that I have, and like I don't want to be, like I said, super critical because I think all of them have their place or had their place in time, and they're
I
still
get.
kind of all needed. And like at one point in time, I was a member of all three and continued to be a member of at least two of them. But like
Mhm. Well,
it's
and
hard to say. And then like like the CS AAA has been getting a lot of shit lately
right.
because they support the industries. And like when they did the announcement, they said that they'd done a pilot program and there were, a handful of businesses that are now ready to hand over guns and do the buyback.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, I'm torn on that as well because it's like the CS AAA, their mandate is to do what's best for the people in the industry.
Right.
And so mom and pop shops that can't afford to carry inventory they can't sell need to find a way to get rid of that stuff. And if the
Yeah.
only option for them is to give it to the government
At like a
and
set price.
stay in business, well, I'm torn on that because like the big ones that like whatever, we've already paid for this, I don't care, we don't
Yeah, they're
need that
not
money,
borrowing money. It's not loaned
right?
money
Like
to hold
fuck
this
you,
inventory, right?
we'll part it out, we'll do whatever we need to do. I appreciate that and I love that attitude and I wish that there was a lot of places that would do that. But yeah, like the mom and pop local gun shop that has a few, tens of thousands of dollars, so maybe not like anywhere near the same amount that some of these massive retailers have, but like a significant amount of money for a small
Yeah,
business tied up
absolutely.
that they can't sell and they can't do anything with. I would rather them turn that in and get paid for it and continue to exist and put
Yep.
food on their table than to
Yep.
just like go away. So like I'm torn on some of that, right? Like it's like I like the
Well,
hard line, like fuck you, come and
yeah.
take it, like don't tread on me. Like that's my attitude, but also like I
Sure.
get it.
Yeah, and I think that that's the really tough line. But, kind of going back to some of these advocacy groups, I think that I think if I was to say, like, you know, for lack of a better word, a call to arms, I think 9 times out of 10, the issue as well with these advocacy groups is that
Bah,
the firearms population is not prepared to engage with
bah,
them. Like the frustration level is
bah.
at a place where people walk away from them. But the problem is that they're really the only groups that can advocate in a organized fashion for this kind
Yeah.
of thing.
And that's
So
where, yeah, like do you have to agree with a hundred
people have
percent of
to
their
like,
message, or is it getting me in the right direction?
well, I think that this is the same problem with the political system in that, everybody has complaints and concerns, but not a lot of people are prepared to step up and actually
Yeah.
run for political offices.
Yeah, but we can't
During this
all do
whole,
that. We've got to pick and choose
no,
where we can
absolutely.
contribute. And
But this is the
uh,
thing though, Gavin. Like when we're talking about this, my parents went to, quite a few talks during the convoy, and it was put on by different people in different industries.
Yeah.
Because again, and not, sorry, I shouldn't say the convoy, but just in general during this whole
Yeah.
fiasco with COVID. A lot of people in different industries, but also people in, mid, low, and even senior levels of government. And they said that one of the best things that people can do is get involved.
Yep.
Right. And
Absolutely.
that involvement doesn't have to be your time. Some people are strapped for time.
Yeah.
So then,
It can
maybe
be
think
money,
about
it
getting
can
those
be,
memberships, right?
yeah,
Think about getting those
absolutely.
memberships.
There are
But then
meaningful
also,
ways that everyone can
absolutely,
contribute.
because that's the only way it's going to change. And if
Yep.
you think as an individual that, oh, I can't change this, then we are going to continue down this trajectory
Yeah. And I
of,
think like
shutdown.
as much as like I love to have a 100% principled standpoint on things,
It's kind of
sometimes
hard.
I think you need to look at the big picture.
Yeah,
And I'm not saying that you need to compromise your morals, your ideals, your values,
right.
but like, I for one think that like as a vetted civilian, that like if I have to have a gun license that I get vetted every single friggin' day
Yeah,
for, why can't I have a machine gun? Because I am
right,
proving every single day that I am trustworthy. So
right.
they know that I'm not going to go and do something stupid with it. And if I have to go, like I already had to do a non-restricted, then a restricted, if I had to go and do like a super restricted or a prohibited course in order to apply for a license to do the thing, that should be a pathway that exists for me. And if
Right.
I pass all of those things and jump through all the fiery hoops and get the thing to do it, then I should be able to do it. And at least there's a way forward for me to achieve that goal.
Right.
Now, that's maybe how I believe, but if, the other organizations aren't necessarily there,
Yeah,
but to achieve my goal, I have to achieve their goal first
absolutely.
because I realize that like I can't just go, listen, Big Trudy,
Yep.
no magazine capacities and machine guns now is not going to be palatable for the average person at the moment.
Right.
Like if I go in with that big stick, I'm never going to get there. And there's a chance that I will never get there to begin with. But if I can take small incremental things to have more freedom and
Yeah.
continue to approach that ideal of more freedom and less restriction, why would I not take that opportunity?
Well, I think so many people are caught up on a couple of things. One is that they cannot enact change as an individual. Like
Yeah.
what can I do? And number two, exactly what you just said. Well, I don't agree 100% with this. And it's like, I
Yeah.
agree. I understand that you maybe don't agree 100% with this,
Yeah.
but it's no different than when you go to the voting booth.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're voting for the least awful,
Oh yeah.
right?
And you hold
And
your nose the
that's
whole way, but
absolutely, but you're like, okay, we got to work slow
am
increments.
am I compromising myself and my values and morals by doing this?
Yeah,
If not, or at least not in any sort of meaningful way, then why wouldn't I do this?
yeah,
Like, it's not like, okay, you could have all of the machine guns and the standard capacity and large capacity magazines, but you have to murder a baby. Then it's like, okay, I'm not
yeah,
doing
not
that.
happening, not happening.
But
Yeah,
but if it's like, okay, you just have to vote for this party that has like 80% of what you want, isn't asking you to do anything that you don't want to do and compromises yourself, but maybe you don't agree totally with. If that's all I have, like, yeah, easy, done.
yeah.
Like I
Well,
can contribute in that meaningful way and hopefully get closer to my goal. Hopefully, at
well,
least
and
somewhere.
this other thing too, kind of, and I know that we're coming up on 2 hours here, but this other thing that I think people kind of forget. We sit here and yeah, you know,
Yeah,
we gripe about the government and all this thing. And I think that that's very much a
that
public thing nowadays. Like
yeah,
a lot of people
but
have shared sentiment about this now.
that's part of the process. And I think
I
that's
absolutely agree with that, because the other side of it is that sometimes people forget that just having a dialogue and chair and challenging other people's minds
yeah,
with good dialogue, with
yeah.
informed dialogue. I generally don't have the most informed dialogue, but I'll ask questions. I
Yeah.
will, do
But
what I
that's
can,
the thing is you're
you
willing to
know?
have that discourse and
Yeah.
learn from it, right? Like
And
and that's how
also,
I
like,
like to try to live my life. And like I know sometimes this podcast is a bit of an echo chamber, but I do try to talk to people. I try to have discourse with people, and it might get times it might be combative and I get a little, you know,
yeah,
passionate about
sure.
it, but I'm always willing to have that. And like if someone can convince me, I will concede.
Well, and this is the thing, that's very healthy discourse. Very
Yeah.
healthy discourse, right? And you talk about that as this maybe being a bit of an echo chamber, but if anybody saw some of our chats or
Yeah.
even was in our conversations, we come from different
Oh,
faith systems and backgrounds and
yeah.
beliefs, and we all still manage to sit around a dinner
Yeah.
table and enjoy each other's
Well,
company,
and that's like so I mean it's kind of
right?
funny. Quite frequently, and this is we'll do you know, Christmas dinner or Easter or
Yeah,
all the things, right? And so it'll usually just be because I have a small family that lives here, my parents and I, and
yeah,
then my partner Angela, who's been on the show many, many years ago and has been enraged recently, so might come on again soon.
love
But
it.
like it'll be like the four of us, and my mother and I don't always necessarily agree politically.
Right.
Um, I know she comes at things from a good place, and I hope she thinks that I do as well, but we do not agree on
Sure.
a lot these days, it seems.
Hmm.
But there is always like her and I will get into a conversation at the dinner table, and it might seem to outsiders as heated
Sure.
because we get both get involved in the conversation and a little passionate about our particular side of an argument.
Sure.
But at the end of the dinner, it's still like, well, that's my mother and like I'm her
Yeah.
son. So like there's no animosity.
Yeah.
Like we might like, you know, in our brains be like, well, yeah, that's stupid. Like that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. But like we would never say that out loud to one another
Absolutely.
because
Absolutely.
there's a, you know, a mutual respect and she understands that like I'm not an idiot. I'm coming at it from an educated place and I same, you know, for her we just have a difference of opinion, but we can have these conversations to the point where like sometimes my father and Angela will just like get up and leave the table because they're
Yeah.
like, I am not dealing with this. Like you guys are arguing. And we're like, well, like we are, but we aren't. Like it's a
Sure.
debate. And it
Yeah.
might sound like a heated debate, but like it's an intellectual discourse is how I look at it. And
Oh,
like,
my whole family, we're all on the same side, and our get-togethers still sound like that. You
yeah,
know, and that's okay. But
yeah,
I also, like, I
but
appreciate that. I think
uh,
that
uh,
that
yeah,
represents freedom. I think that represents freedom of
I
mind, of thought.
I
And
like
when
to
people
be
try
challenged,
and
and I don't
shut
think
that,
that, yeah, I don't think
people can't shut that down.
any of my opinions are above reproach, right? Like
Absolutely.
if I can't defend it, then how strong is it?
Absolutely.
So
And but that's the essence of like what I think a lot of these organizations, these individuals are trying to do is preserve the capacity to disagree,
yeah,
to the essence of, hey, free speech, freedom to own these firearms,
yeah,
freedom to do this, that, and the other thing, right?
well, yeah,
And
and this
and
is why I
I
also
get
really want to do our theological discussion because I
I
think it'd be
know, because
fascinating,
it's
right?
kind of just it's just super interesting
And
to like have differing opinions,
yeah,
and we also tend to tease each other and
well, exactly. If you can't take
that
the
sort of
piss out of
thing.
your friends over things like that, then what can you do, right? And we all know that it's in good fun and that nobody really cares,
Right.
right?
It's true.
That's
It's true. Like, I mean, at the end of the day, we're all still people that,
yeah,
for the most part, still bleed the same, and we
yeah,
still
yeah.
breathe the same air.
Yeah.
But, you know, I
And
guess,
like when we all die, that we'll all know that I'm right and that Odin is the one that's up there, and that's fine. I can wait to win the argument on that one. That is not a problem.
right, right. Yeah,
Yeah.
whatever
Yeah.
helps you sleep tonight, Gavin.
Yeah. Well, after all these announcements this week, I need to sleep good because
Yeah, because it's just too rough. But okay, so I have to go soon, but
no
I
worries.
will
We'll
say,
we'll we'll skip out the last couple articles, but those were
well,
there
we're
just for
running,
funsies.
yeah, well, but I guess I'll kind of like maybe wrap up my rant
Yeah,
by
yeah,
just like, even if people don't think that they can enact change, go and participate in political debates on your local government,
yeah.
because it does the same thing. It challenges, like, go and run. Like, because if there's a dozen candidates for MPP or MP or whatever, you know, those
Yeah.
debates get real,
All
real
that and
fantastic.
oh, for
And
sure.
it's a
And like get
variety,
involved
shaking
in
it up.
whatever capacity that you have
Yeah,
the capacity to get involved in. But like
yeah,
while you yourself maybe don't enact change, somebody that you challenge intellectually might, right? And if
yes,
you didn't challenge them, maybe they wouldn't have thought that way. Or maybe
yeah,
just something that you said or did, even at a grassroots level, inspires somebody else to go and be the one that actually enacts change. I mean,
100%.
very few individuals truly ever enact change.
As
But,
a solo, as an individual, correct. But
but,
it's really interesting.
yes,
Yeah, it's really
if you
interesting
don't
how you find shared,
participate at all,
zero
like,
percent chance.
yeah, but yeah, you might influence somebody else who
Yeah,
influences somebody else that does do the thing, but that chain reaction would never have happened if you didn't do something simple like attending your local riding association barbecue, right? And talk to
absolutely.
somebody, right? Because maybe they
Absolutely.
didn't think of something little, or maybe your $5 donation
Yeah,
actually put something over the goal so that they could achieve something
yeah.
meaningful with it, right? Like it
It is,
all adds up.
and it's pretty, I think, self-cathartic as well. Like, you know, the frustrations that we all have as Canadians living in this economy and this like geopolitical spectrum of
Yeah.
nonsense. Like, yeah, you know, we sit here on a podcast and like chat on the
Yeah.
rare occasion that I get on here, but we chat about this, we complain about this, we, you know, talk a certain amount of trash, and that certainly happens behind closed doors even more. But you know, I
It's a little
guess I
shit
guess
talking,
my
yeah.
thing is like, what's that?
It's a little shit talking from time to time,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's great. I love it. But I think that it's pretty cathartic when you can go to a place, you know,
Yeah.
where you are at a venue that you can voice your opinions and
Yeah.
productively and actionably, you know, I
Yeah.
guess it's a little bit of a purpose giving
Yeah.
situation, you know? And if that
Absolutely.
means that you put around an NFA card in your wallet, that's still good
Yeah.
enough. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
Well, and
I'm not gonna lie, I drive around and I see CCFR stickers on trucks and vehicles,
yep.
you know, stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, hey. And
Yeah.
it's just,
Well, and you
if
can give
nothing
them a
else, it
little
puts a
wave and
smile
a
on your
little
face.
honk or whatever,
Yeah,
right? And like, wave at them and
yeah,
everything. And yeah. Oh, I agree. It's so, I mean, I will let people know of a way that they can contribute right now. So your local gun stores are struggling right now, right? There's a bunch of
yeah,
stuff that they've got in inventory that they can't sell. And if you don't want them to be forced to
don't want to
take
do it.
advantage of the government programs in order to survive, you know what you can do? You can go and spend your dollars there,
Yeah,
right? So every time the government tells you that you can't have a thing or they try to ban something, you go and buy it.
yep,
I went by the local gun store the other day and I bought a new rifle
love it.
because
And
fuck you, right?
yeah, yeah. And you
And
know, it could be something as simple if you don't have firearms license, but you want to do something, they all have sweaters. Go
Yeah,
and buy
like,
spot.
or like I
No?
did it when the COVID lockdowns, and a friend of mine owns a firearm store, and they just built a new range and everything else, and um I saw that they were doing a sticker draw for a pistol. And I was
Yep.
like, you know what? Like, I know they're going through it right now, and like it's not easy to move to a new store and build this new store and build a range and go through all of the crazy restrictions and have it open just in time to get shut down because of COVID. I was like, whatever, I'll buy a couple of stickers and just like to support them that way, right? Like,
Mhm.
it
Yeah,
was
exactly.
$60, so it was like whatever. Like, I can afford the $60. Like, I'm not telling anyone to go out and bankrupt themselves, but like I did that, and then I ended up winning, and I was like, "Are you fucking kidding me? Like, that's awesome." But like,
That's
I
amazing.
didn't do it for that. It was like, yeah. It's the thing that I would never buy for myself, even though I really wanted it, because it's kind of was a frivolous thing. But it was like, whatever, I can help a friend out and do that. So you could do the same. Like, literally go and buy
And
a
gun
box of
shows.
ammo or a hat or a sweater or
Yeah.
a t-shirt or something to support your local gun stores and make that difference, right?
Yeah.
The more
And get
of those
involved
that
with
stay
your
open, the
ranges
better.
too.
Yeah. Or
Yeah, get involved with your ranges as well
yeah,
because you learn a
or
lot
your
more.
local political parties have fundraisers going on right now, right? So like, I mean,
Yep.
preferably I'd like you to contribute to the Conservative Party because they have the best chance of seating the Liberals. But
Yes.
if you go and attend an event and put $5 into the coffers of whatever party that you believe in, I will
The
still be
Christian
proud of you for
Heritage.
supporting what you believe in, whether it's the same thing that I believe in or not.
Right.
But
It's true.
preferably the Conservative Party for now. After
Yeah.
they oust the liberals and reverse all the things, then you can go and donate to whoever and vote for whoever. But until
Yeah,
then,
it's true.
yeah, until then,
But you know,
yeah.
it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be a big thing. And
No,
also like reshare posts from not from
absolutely.
everyone, but like reshare posts from your
Yeah,
gun clubs, your ranges, your advocacy groups. Maybe
yeah.
don't reshare posts from every Joe Blow on social media, but
Yeah,
you
like
know,
fact check it slightly at least.
yeah, just a titch,
Like, yeah, just a little. If you're
just a
unsure,
titch.
shoot us an email.
Yeah, exactly. Use that email. I'm sure
Yeah,
Andrew would love to check all those emails.
yeah. All right. Well, let's wrap it up. So when you're not being an advocate for political change on this podcast, where can people find you or not find you?
I you can come out to train at a jujitsu gym.
Nice.
I'm
Yep.
just gonna say whatever jujitsu gym, go and train.
Just tell them that Liz sent you.
Yeah, I
Wherever
you're
you are in the country, just
yeah,
tell them
wherever
Liz
you
sent
are
you.
in the
Yeah,
country. Yeah,
I like it.
yeah.
Well, that works.
That's where you can find me.
Perfect. You can find me personally, for the most part on Instagram, UrbexGTA. Also, if you have listened to the show this long, you definitely deserve a discount. So you can visit ragnaroktactical.ca and use the code Patriot at checkout to pick up some medical supplies and or some magazine carriers for rifles that you're not allowed to use anymore, but might need to in some sort of dystopian future in Minecraft or the movie script that I'm writing. Um,
Battery holder.
Yes, battery holders. Absolutely. You can 3D print magazine shaped battery holders is a thing now, and it's
Oh,
amazing. And then that way you could always have them on your belt at work or whatever that you do when you're like, oh, I need a battery. Here we go.
yeah, it's
Um,
great.
yes, you can also there's a Discord where you can get involved and find people in your area and so on and so forth. Apologies to Rod, he wasn't able to make it today after that whole mishap where he was on the other CPP, and then the gun bans came out and he got kind of busy, so uh, he couldn't make it tonight. But that's why Liz and I are talking about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Also, I would like to remind you all that you are a small fringe minority, but you can still get like politically involved and affect some change, despite the fact that you may or may not have